This episode is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities.
I need all of those things, and I'm in Alberta.
Hey!
Look, picture this.
What a coincidence. In Alberta, you get to choose who to buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas from. Park Power has low overhead, which in turn allows them to offer low competitive rates.
That's what I want. I want low rates. We're all tight for cash.
Yeah, and you're in your first apartment, so seriously, you should be looking at Park Power.
Don't scold me on the ad.
Reach out for a no obligations comparison by emailing estimates at parkpower.ca. If you decide to switch, it's easy. It's really just a change to your billing, and you can feel good knowing that you're helping to give back to our communities with your utilities bills. Learn more at parkpower.ca.
Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 or 67, pretty sure it's 67, of The Breakfast Dish. And the reason that I can't be certain about that is because my regular co-host, Griffin Cork, my son, is not with me today because he sure doesn't feel well today. And as a good mummy, I'm letting him go back to bed. And I'm just going to talk to our guest by myself, but I'm going to feel confident. I'm going to say it out loud with confidence. This is episode 67 of The Breakfast Dish. And The Breakfast Dish is a podcast that features any art happening in Alberta. And it started as art that was happening online during the pandemic, helping people find things that they could see outdoors or socially distanced. But things are opening up now. And then now Griffin and I just get to talk to people that we choose to talk to because we think what they're doing is very cool. So join us on Facebook or Twitter and follow all the great guests that we've had. Okay, so I get the pleasure of speaking to Monty Haughian from Grande Prairie Live Theatre. Welcome, Monty.
Thank you very much, Karen. And where do you reside?
I reside in Calgary.
Oh, you're in the southern Alberta. Okay.
I am southern Alberta, although I have roots to Grande Prairie.
Oh, do you?
Because my grandparents lived there, and I think my dad was born there, or if not, very close in, I think, Sexsmith.
Oh, okay.
Is that quite close?
Yes, 11 miles.
Yeah,
that's
great.
There.
So yeah, that's my connection. Plus, I've been up there. I do a lot of work with Quest Theatre, with touring shows or artist in school residencies. So I've been to Grande Prairie a number of times in a gigantic van with Quest on the side. But yeah, I grew up in Sherwood Park, and now I'm in Calgary, and my boy is also in Calgary. And have you lived in Grande Prairie all your life?
Basically. My parents moved here in 1962. So I was 5 years old at the time. So I've been a Grande Prairieite since 62. It's going on 60 years this year. Actually, this month, I think, is 60 years proper.
So that makes your stay in Grande Prairie about the same age as the Grande Prairie Live Theatre.
Exactly. 2023-24 is their 60th anniversary.
Oh, my gosh. I work a lot with Theatre Alberta, which I'm sure Grande Prairie Live Theatre is a member of, and we host Arts Trek summer theatre camp for teens. And we've just turned 61.
Okay.
And we were just talking to Mary Ellen Purley from the Alberta Drama Festival Association, and they're the same age. Like, this province has a great history of community theatre.
Yes.
How long have you been involved with Grande Prairie Live Theatre?
Well, actually, I got started in 2002.
Oh, a while.
But I was an introvert. I had never done anything, like nothing in school. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I was more sports, skiing, hockey, water skiing. And so from 1990 up to about 2002, it was coach hockey, my boys. And then in 2002, I was done coaching, and my daughter, who was always just tagged along to the arenas, she loved the movie Fiddler on the Roof. And it turned out that Fiddler on the Roof, Grande Prairie Live Theatre, was putting it on in the spring of 2003. So as a father-daughter winter project, we decided we would try out for Fiddler on the Roof. And I got a role as the constable because I was big and ugly, and I could be the bad guy. But sadly, she was only 11 and a half at the time and was afraid to sing at the audition. But she knew every song, but she sadly did not get a part. But I went on, and like I said, that was my first introduction to theater anywhere. And ultimately, I found that I loved it. Almost cost me a marriage, though. My wife hated it.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, the amount of time that it took and everything else, it was, but the story is that we grew together, and she is my co-director on this year's production. We have worked together. We essentially work hand in hand. She was my co-director and actually took over a lot of the directing in the last 6 weeks of the show. And she's the stage manager also. So it worked out good. Like as we will discuss, this show had a lot of headaches.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So how's your relationship with your daughter after she didn't get a part and you did get a part?
Well, she still loved theater, and she has been in. And actually, like Shirley and I, my wife, have kind of decided that this was possibly our last show.
Okay.
But my daughter, she has mentored under us.
Yeah. And
usually the Grande Prairie Live Theatres likes you to mentor, at least to learn some of the directors. She would like to direct a play coming up for Grande Prairie Live Theatre.
So she's still in Grande Prairie, your daughter?
Oh, yeah, she's still in Grande Prairie.
And is she in this production of Fiddler on the Roof?
Yes, she was. It's too bad we're talking about this post-show. This is a post-podcast. So we had 11 shows.
How many are in the cast?
Well, because it's a live theater volunteer production, my goal was to have as many as we could.
I love that.
And my goal is to have newbies, get new people involved. So we ended up with a cast of 52 on stage.
My Lord.
Okay. Of Fiddler on the Roof. Ultimately, orchestra of 30, full orchestra. And we were over 115 in the full production.
With crew, etc.
Crew, backstage, costumers, makeup. It was 115. So this was an immense production. Just keeping track of emails.
Yeah.
Oh, technology was not my savior. Because you have so many platforms now.
Yeah. You
have email, Facebook, Twitter. It really, and there was casting problems trying to get enough of men. Men are always a problem in musical.
Yeah.
But the good part about Fiddlers, they have non-singing roles.
That's right.
For the production, there's the Russians do not have to. They have one of them has to sing, but ultimately, when we did it in 2003, we had trouble getting men. So we had women performing the dancing, the Russian dancing, and the Jewish dancing. We called them lumpy Russians, but
just a few extra bumps here.
Yeah, but I was talent-wise, I was blessed in this play. I had 4 male Ukrainian dancers audition. One was about 40 years old, and he ultimately dropped out. But during the audition, it was just, he showed me some moves, and I went, whoa, oh, I've got a dancer. Oh, I've got a dancer.
I'm so sorry he had to drop out.
But I had 2 younger Ukrainian dancers, both singers and dancers. So they were spectacular. And are you familiar with Fiddler on the Roof? Have you watched it a few times?
I've seen it a number of times, and Arts Trek used it as our play of study probably 7 or 8 years ago. So I'm pretty familiar with it. Yeah.
And one of the most spectacular dance is the bottle dance.
Yeah.
And I had 4 men doing the bottle dance. So that ultimately was so spectacular. If I could have had dust on the floor, I wanted dust on the floor for the bottle dance, for them kicking and everything.
Right.
But you can't do that in the theater.
No. Especially if you kick up dust and then your audience starts coughing and then everybody's worried because your audience is coughing.
I found that I'm sensitive to the hazers and the smoke machines. But we had one, our tech rented a professional quality smoke machine. And I found that one did not bother me at all. I did a small role in a production of Grapes of Wrath a couple of years ago. And they videoed it, and I watched the video, and here I am on stage.
Oh, no.
It just got in my throat. The hazer sometimes affects me. So
yeah, there used to be a chemical, and now the new ones have like a water vapor. That's pretty much all it is. I was just working in Edmonton on Peter Pan Goes Wrong at the Citadel, and we have there's a lot of fog jokes that happen when the pirates get lost in the fog. And we have to put up the warnings, but truly the audience hasn't been bothered at all because it's just a heavy water vapor, which is, I'm glad somebody finally figured that out.
Yes, because like I say, the old ones were pretty volatile.
Yeah, and they would just make so much noise.
Yeah. This one was very quiet. Like this was, we had I think a 6-inch hose, about 25 feet long, because the hazer the smoke machine was put way in the back, and
smart.
And it worked out. It was quite noisy, and with my daughter's production that she's thinking about putting on, smoke is kind of a de rigueur to have in a production if you have a chance to put it on. So
right. I know nothing about lighting design, but there's a couple lighting designers here in Calgary who talk about just how much nicer it is to have just a slight haze all the way through for your lights to bounce off of or shine through.
Yeah, well, shine through. One of the productions I was in, and it's the production that my daughter is thinking about doing, will be in 23-24, is Forever Plaid. And I was actually in Forever Plaid, one of my shows in 2006, 14, 15 years ago, 17, 16 years ago. And the director at that time, Lane Smith, wanted a real nightclub atmosphere. Yeah. So we did it at a hotel, and the hazer was on all the time, and we had spotlights from behind, and you see the spotlights shining through the fog, the haze, to the stage, and it's spectacular. So
it makes the actors silhouetted on stage when those lights are behind you going through the haze.
Yes, like and that's what he was going for, was the atmosphere of a 1950s nightclub, 1960s nightclub.
And so do you often, or does that often happen with Grande Prairie Live Theatre, that you do shows that aren't in the theatre proper?
We used to. It's kind of gone away. The price is inhibitive.
I gotcha.
I know that our 2006 production of Forever Plaid didn't make very much money, but it was a dinner theater in a hotel.
Sure.
And we've had a small hall just east of Grande Prairie that we used to do dinner theater into. But I know that my daughter would like to do the similar. But the objective now is still to try and make money for your theater.
And it's so hard now when you have so many. Well, I expect you have extra costs if you have gone through a huge time of having an audience size being limited, plus a dinner theater. You're not supposed to be sharing food during times of COVID.
No. And the buffets are out, and I think it would be prohibitive. We have in our little live theater in Grande Prairie, we do have dinner theater, but it's not. You don't sit at your table. You have a dinner upstairs in our lounge, and then watch the show.
Oh, isn't that neat? That sounds like very Rosebud or Chemainus Theatre on the island.
Yeah, we have the meal outside the venue, and then you just go down. The live theater was built. It's an old tire shop that they changed into a little.
I didn't know that.
It's got 167 seats. Like, I've gone from acting to directing and I build all my own sets. But the Grande Prairie Live Theatre is unique because it does not have a stage left.
Ho, I've been in a couple of those. Tell us how you deal with that.
You have only stage right to enter from. Everybody comes from stage right.
Do you ever do like a drop curtain at the back so at least people can go behind the curtain and cross over? Or?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah, we have to build. We have to build entrances, but there's no room for anything but people entrances. That's it. No props, no nothing. Everything has to come from stage right.
There's a wonderful little theater here in Calgary called the Engineered Air Theater. This is exactly the same thing. You walk off stage and bam, right into a wall.
Yeah, basically.
How long has that theater been there? When was it transferred out of a tire shop?
It was built in 1964 as a tire shop, an Atlas tire shop. And then in 1983, I think they turned it into a theater. And they've put a new roof on it. It just used to be a little flat roof building, and they've put a roof on top, and they've built a second floor for the Encore's Lounge. So they have a lounge, a drinking area, and we have room to store all our costumes in there. And it's still very quaint, but it's a very, like I say, a very nice little theater. It's got a 24-seat balcony. So that's nice.
I'm sad that I'm never up north in a long enough to go see things. I've worked at Keanu, but I haven't ever had the joy of being in the Grande Prairie Live Theatre. And now you're doing an excellent job of selling it. Yes. Because now I'm imagining 176 seats, some of them are in a balcony in an old tire shop is exactly what I want to see theater in. It is.
Because it has cement walls. Like there's no way of expanding things. Like it's it's built. And that's what it is.
It's sturdy, though. It's going to stay for a while. Yep. Griffin and I went once to the New York Fringe. We were seeing something. It wasn't like, obviously on the main strip, but we went into this little place and you kind of walk in and it's this bar that's about the size of a bathroom cubicle in a gas station. Like it was teeny. But then you walk to the back and you go through this little door and down these 3 steps. And then there's this little tiny theater of about maybe 40 people. And you'd never know it was there because it's hidden at the back of this bar. Yeah. And it was probably the worst show we'd ever seen in the best theater in New York. Favorite theater.
We have a new theater, which is adjoined to a school in Grande Prairie, the KMSC Performing Arts Theater.
Wonderful.
And it's almost like a black box theater. There's no stage. It's just the floor. Mm. But it's a very large stage. It's 70 feet wide of stage area. So that's about twice the size of our Grande Prairie Polytechnique school. So I had lots of room for set. Like speaking in numbers and everything else, like our theater likes to hit 66% basically fill. That's your goal for your show.
For your budget, you want 66% of your audience fill.
For your budget. Yeah. 66% bums and seats. And so we had 11 shows at 300. It has 300 seats. And so we had a possibility of 3,300 guests. We ended up I was shooting for 2,200, which would be 66%. But we had 2,511 guests. So we hit 76% fill through COVID.
COVID?
Yeah, But COVID, it was interesting. We started rehearsal September 25th with our cast. And we wore masks completely for every rehearsal. Yeah. Singing. Everything else.
You have to.
I think in the 4 months, we had 4 or 5 cases of COVID, but not within the cast. The cast members got sick, but it was from away.
Yeah, right. It wasn't spread amongst.
It never spread through our cast. They stayed away. But I said COVID was kind of standing at the door, and we hit dress 1 when we took our masks off, and it was take your masks off, take your masks off. And so the first week we had 1 cast member go down with COVID. The second week, we had 9 go down. Oh. We had our conductor, our light technician, and 7 cast members go down. So it was a real chess game. Oh, you can go cover this. Right. The good part was we never lost a prime role.
Okay,
it was usually subsidiary, just the 1 or 2 lines. It was until the final weekend. We lost Laser Wolf.
Oh, then what happened?
Well, then I had to step in.
Yeah, you did. I was going to say, who knows the show better than the person that directed it?
So basically, I took over Laser's role. So it was very stressful through the show itself, trying to fit people to different roles. But ultimately, I was blessed with a lot of talent, though. A lot of talent.
Oh, it sounds like it. If you've got people that can just pick up and go into another role.
Yes. We had Hoddle go out, and this young girl came in and sang and danced and knew everything in 1 day's notice. 1 day's notice to take over Hoddle, the major role.
Whoever this young girl is needs to now put that part on her resume. She has officially played that part now.
Well, the good part was we do an archive video for the theater.
Yeah.
And that was the night they archived it. She's in the archive. He did come back and do a second one, and it was really good because I said, well, can we just cut these people out and put them at the end just so you can see them perform? He says, I'll just make 2 archives.
Oh.
When I picked this show, who knew how relevant it was for today?
I was going to say, like, how were your cast members from the Ukrainian community affected by doing the show during what was happening?
Well, they learned a lot. They learned a lot. Like, even in 2003, I had an old neighbor, an older gentleman, that when we moved in 63, I lived across the street from him for 8 or 9 years. And he came up to me in 2003 and he said, "You didn't mean what you said on stage, did you?" Because I was the constable. And I said, "No, that's just the words that are, well, you didn't mean it." But he was moved out of the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia in 1939. Yeah. So, and they moved, the families moved to just across the BC border towards Dawson Creek. And there's a small park there called Sudeten Park. So he was going, I've been through exactly. And like I say, I took on Laser Wolf's role, but there's a non-speaking role in the opening scene. You need a Roman Catholic priest to walk through with the Russians. So I'm not going to look for another man. I'll put on the costume and just walk through. That's all it is. No words, no nothing. The opening night, we're walking through, and somebody hollered at us. Well, I don't know if they hollered. I did not hear it. But somebody called us racist as we walked by the crowd. But that was before the Ukraine thing ever even happened. Wow. So like that's how you interact with the crowd. But I did not hear that, but the one character, one of my Russians, did hear that as he was walking past. I know you and I have both heard this argument so many times, but you know, the first thing that gets cut is the money for the arts, etc. And then you think moments like that, good or bad, just prove how much theater and the arts can affect someone's state of mind, can affect a community. Theater Calgary, they did Diary of Anne Frank a number of years ago, 10, 15 maybe. And I was in the audience watching it. And then at intermission, we all go to the washroom. And we all know this. The ladies' lineups for the washrooms are way longer than the men's lineups. Oh. So there's 2 washrooms are side by side. And the ladies, there's probably 20 people lined up to it. And at the men's, there's no lineup. The men are just in and out and in and out. And at one point, this older gentleman, he had to be 85 maybe, he goes and peeks in the men's washroom, and then he looks at the ladies in the line and goes, you go use ours. I'll watch. So he stopped men coming in and let about 10 women use the washrooms, you know, and I was one of them. And I came out and I said, that was very nice of you. And he said, I'm German. I see a show like this. I have to do something. I have to give kudos to Theatre Calgary. Really? Yes, there's kind of a story. I directed Cats up here in 2013. That was massive production. Everybody up here said, you can't do Cats. You can't do Cats. Like it is a niche type of show. And I went to see the traveling production in 2012 in Edmonton. And I thought to myself, I've got as good or better singers in Grande Prairie. I know that. I love that so much. And then it just so happened that my aunt passed away in Calgary in April of 2012. So, and Theatre Calgary was putting on their production of Cats. And
Right.
I had approached them and I said, like, I would like to have a tour of the theater and see everything else. And so we got our tickets, and after the funeral, I went to Cats on a Thursday night, and Theatre Calgary blew me away. They were spectacular. Spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
But I said, on the traveling Broadway production, they move into a theater, and it's like...
It's a touring set.
Yeah, touring set, yes. But home court advantage for Theatre Calgary. When they had the cat rappel out of the box seat there, that I just went, wow. And then they called me back the next day on the Friday, and they said, well, yeah, when you're here tonight, we'll give you the full theater tour. And I said, well, I was just there last night. I didn't get to. But I had approached them in April, and I said, can I buy your costumes after you're done with them? And never heard anything. And finally in November, my volunteer costume ladies, 2 of them are going, there's no way we're going to be able to make costumes. So Wayne Ailing, our manager at that time, he contacted Theatre Calgary, can we buy your costumes? And they came back, yeah, you can buy them for $29,000.
Oh.
Yeah, but they spent $90,000 on them. Those were made in Toronto. They were full Broadway costumes. Full.
Sure. Okay. Understood.
These were top of the line costumes.
But how does $29,000 sit in the pocket of the community theater in Grande Prairie?
Not going to happen.
No.
But they rented them to us for $6,500.
Theatre Calgary, you win.
And then we had one of my cast members. He was 6'6", 320 pounds.
Oh.
Like, we had to make his costume. I had to end up making 3 costumes.
Right.
No, 5 costumes. But that was minor because he was just so big.
Yeah, no choice.
It was just funny because we did squeeze him into his costume. But we said, don't move because it's just going to explode.
You're not allowed to bend over, sing, take a breath of air, or dance.
No. So we had to make some spandex for him. But no, they were spectacular costumes.
This episode is sponsored by ATB. Mom, what does ATB stand for?
Alberta Treasury Branch. Next question.
Okay. Do you know the name of their campaign?
Built to help Albertans. Next question.
That's right. And speaking of questions, they're there to answer your questions that are commonly asked by Albertans in these tough times. Karen, what's a commonly asked question that you never get an answer to?
Why doesn't Neil Diamond love me?
Perfect. ATB, you better get on it. In 1938, they were open. They provide supports for Albertans during these hard times. Like when Karen asks you a question, you have to let her down easy. But ATB is still there to support Albertans through the bad and the good.
Everyone thinks Neil Diamond's old. ATB is older than Neil Diamond.
That's right. We're dropping actual facts here. But they're also here to help Albertans because it's a downturn. People are slowly recovering and it's not quite over, but they're built to help Albertans. So they're going to rebuild and we're going to find a new normal. And ATB's going to give you a call and tell you about Neil Diamond.
You should get an account there.
I have one. I have a debit.
I've raised you well. Good for me.
Yeah.
Tell me more things about Grande Prairie. Like, what keeps you there for all but 5 years of your life?
Well, personally, I always said that I would not leave until my parents passed away.
Right.
But now I'm so ingrained. There's no other place to go. So I have grandkids in Lanceville, just outside of Nanaimo, and grandkids here. So that's the big thing is grandkids now and family.
But Northern Alberta, there's nothing like Northern Alberta. We just don't get there enough, but it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened with your wife that made her change her mind and join you on the theater track?
Well, it was just a case of like when I did Fiddler in 2003, I went into about a month depression. It hurt me because I sold my soul to the show.
You mean when it was done, you were sad, you mean?
Yeah, when it was done. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I even tell my newbies coming in, there's a cliff at the end of the show. You have to be prepared. On the Sunday or the Monday, there's no rehearsals. You're not going to see these people. And so I've actually told myself I didn't ever want to get into that same heartbreak situation. Like I've kind of steeled myself. I'm not going to sell my soul to something like that. And one of my adjuncts was I did coaching and mission staff for Team Alberta. in the Arctic Winter Games,
Oh,
which is a northern sporting event. It's international. It has Greenland, Russia, Alaska, the Northwest Territories, and it's a sporting event of up to 2,000 people, 2,200 athletes for a full week.
wow.
So during the closing ceremonies, the day of closing ceremony, I'm getting this heartbreak. I'm going, I said I would not do this. And I don't really even care about this thing. Like, I cared about the play more than I cared about this. Like, what the heck? So it was weird. So
Griffin's grandpa, Gary, has always said to Griffin, if you're not sad when you leave, then you didn't have a good time.
yeah.
That just been such a good idea to remind myself every once in a while, the reason I'm feeling this way is because I had a good time. And you do, like, you put so much energy into things that whether or not you think you were completely attached to them, you're still going, now what do I do? What's my purpose now? And here's the thing, as a professional, and I've been acting for 32 years. I cry after almost every single show because you get so tight with your cast and so tight with the audience. Like, you've spent the last however many weeks just changing audiences' moods. And then you're stuck, and now you just have to go back and do your laundry and mop your floor.
That's like, I look at the theater experience. Yeah, I try and get all my friends and coworkers to go, and as I said, like, it's a beautiful evening. It's you don't have to think, just go enjoy.
Someone will tell you a story. Yeah.
And like I say, I've gone to shows and they go, well, that one wasn't very good. but it's an evening out. And that's how the wife and I first started. We got free tickets from the neighbor. And I think at that show, it was called Mad Housewives, about some housewives that started a punk rock band. And I went to the theater and had cornflakes and Rice Krispies thrown at me. They had boxes, and they literally threw it out in the crowd. We were peppered with cornflakes, and that's how my neighbor worked at the local grocery store, and they got free tickets for probably giving them day old cornflakes and Rice Krispies. And that was our first experience. So we'd go once or twice. Our kids were young, but then it got to season tickets. So because you're guaranteed 7 or 8 shows out in the wintertime. And it's a nice evening out.
Okay, well then let's transfer to Stag and Doe, shall we? Can you talk about that one?
One of the actors who has performed in a show that Shirley and I directed a few years ago, it's his first show back in about 5 or 6 years on stage. So Brandon Carpenter, so he's just coming back from a hiatus from acting. So it'll be good to see him back on stage tonight.
Thank you, Brandon, for coming back to the theater. We need the men. We've been talking about that.
Yep.
We need the men.
Yep.
So along those lines, Ben Kaplan is coming to your theater April 29th. And seriously, at ATP a couple of years ago, they did a show called Old Stock, a refugee love story. Ben Kaplan was the singer in that show. I can't even tell you. And you've got Arrogant Worms coming up. So theater-wise, the play-wise, after Stag and Doe, you have Pillowman.
Yes.
Are you involved in Pillowman?
No, I'm really I'm trying to catch up on my sleep, because my sleep pattern between COVID and I was worried so much about this play coming together.
You need to rest.
My set was so massive. I had basically 2 buildings that opened up, and that was the only good part. There was no show in January in the Grande Prairie Live Theatre. So I had the green room, our construction room, and the whole stage to build my set on. And it was so massive. And it was built on a premise that these wheels would work. I could move pieces. And we put it all together, and the premise did not work out. So there was a lot of sweating, because it took 5 men and a boy to move one of these buildings. And then afterwards, it turned out that 1 man could move it after we got it fixed. So
I think every theater has had that problem. I'm building this on the premise that these wheels will work.
the final piece is going to work. And when it doesn't work, you go, oh my God, now what do I do?
I'm going to jump into a little segment because we're running out of time here. But our theme song, sung by Alexander Cowman, in the theme song, she sings, "Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs." So we've been asking our guests, are you a nighttime dreamer? If so, what's the weirdest one you've ever had or one that's really stuck with you from childhood?
Oh, no, I'm not going to go with the dream, but on the music theme, I love Lauren Bacall from
Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall?
Bogey's Lauren Bacall. She sang in a musical called Applause. And there is the song that I really refer to all the time is called Welcome to the Theatre. And it's her explaining the theater. And it's really funny because they talk about the stagehands pinching your butt. That's the only quiet thing they do. But the line that I love in this Welcome to the Theatre is, I only come alive at 6 o'clock. You know you're ready to go to the show. 6 o'clock, it's time to get ready for the show.
I love that.
So I only come alive at 6 o'clock.
Well, this podcast came alive because of the Alberta Podcast Network, because The Breakfast Dish is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown and community supported. As I mentioned, our theme song is from Alexander Cowman, beautiful, beautiful singer. All our podcast art is done by Morgan Ermter. At the end of the theme song tonight, you'll be able to listen in, and I'll be telling you some more things that are happening across Alberta this week. So stick around after the final outro music. And one last question for you that we have been doing too, and it's supposed to be an improvised question, and I'm not supposed to have thought of it because I'm a professional improviser, but truly we've been so wrapped in conversation, I haven't thought of it anyway. So 1, 2, 3, I'm going to ask you a question. If you had the sports teams that you used to coach on stage, what play would you put them in?
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Damn Yankees, I think.
Oh, hey, that's a great idea. That's terrific. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Griffin, in absentia. But thank you, Monty. It's been just a joy hearing more about your theater and about your coming alive for it.
Too bad it wasn't pre-show, not post-show.
So true. But you know what? We're going to tell him to go to Stag and Doe. We're going to tell him to go to Pillow Man, because that's the other thing. You have 3 very different shows in your season.
Yeah, I don't even know what Pillow Man's about, but
oh, it's dark.
I know my costumer said, oh, my goodness.
But if you live in a city that doesn't have necessarily access to run to Calgary and Edmonton to see theater, you have to give them a good range. And this season you have is a great range. It's a great range. Yeah. So everyone, if you haven't been to Grande Prairie Live Theatre, you are missing out. And on that note, Monty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for letting me have a little speech. Thanks, Karen.
Alexander Cowman amazing. Here's what you should look at this week. If you are anywhere near the Castle Mountain Resort, you can hear BB Buckskin play at the T-Bar Pub Friday, April 1st at 8 p.m. For tickets and info, you can go to skicastle.ca. BB Buckskin is a Cree Métis artist with deep roots in the muskeg and boreal forest of northern Alberta. Bluesy, nostalgically rock and roll, and undoubtedly soulful. Also, if you're going to be in Edmonton starting Saturday, April 2nd, it's the Alberta Ballet's production of Phi, featuring the music of David Bowie. This contemporary sci-fi ballet explores humanity's growing addiction to technology, and it's inspired by the music of the late, great David Bowie. And you will find that at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium. Phone number 780-427-2760, or go to jubileeauditorium.com.
This has been The Breakfast Dish.